Alright, everybody. So, I've been meaning to talk about this for a while because, many people my age, and in my demographic of age group, generally, like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, etc., grew up watching a select few channels. Now, granted, I didn't have cable until I got a little bit older, but around the age of 9 or 10, I got cable, and the two best channels to go to were always Cartoon Network, was my number one, or Nickelodeon. And Nickelodeon aired, unlike Cartoon Network, which aired mostly cartoons, even during that weird live-action era they had, which, for all the faults of the Cartoon Network live-action era, most of the people they had on TV for their live-action content were adults. So, not really much risk of any weird shit going down there. But Nickelodeon was different in that the majority of their biggest shows, besides, like, SpongeBob, were not animated, but instead live-action kids sitcoms. These are your iCarlys, your, I'm brain farting on the name, Sweet Life and Zack of Cody. Was that Disney? That might have been Disney. Victorious, Sam and Cat. He brings up Quentin Review's channel, looks at most recently reviewed shows. Drake and Josh, yes, exactly. Yeah, they were basically just this big roster of beloved and popular kids sitcoms. And honestly, there was enough... Yeah, I know it was Disney. There's enough that you could get from them, honestly, I think even as an adult, to enjoy them on a comedic level. But they were definitely made for kids, right? Now, even back then, watching these shows, while I liked some of them and didn't really care for others, like particularly never was the biggest fan of Drake and Josh, watched a few episodes, didn't really stick with me, wasn't something that I really felt like sticking around for whenever they said, Drake and Josh, on next. Really the only of those shows I watched much of was iCarly, because, like, internet stuff, I was always into internet stuff and content creation, so a TV show about that appealed to me most, and besides that, like iCarly, SpongeBob, and a couple other shows, I didn't really watch... Oh, yeah, and Jimmy Neutron. I didn't really watch much Nickelodeon. But I remember even as a kid kind of finding some aspects of those live-action Nickelodeon shows a little weird. Like, there was this certain aspect to the humor of these shows that just felt odd. And looking back at some of these bits as an adult, notably after rewatching Quentin Review's full review of iCarly as a series, it's very clear there's this through line of putting these, in many cases, underage actors into weird situations that on their face are just funny and goofy, but if you look at them from the perspective of an adult who knows how deranged and decrepit and degenerate particularly adult men can be, it starts to look a little more sinister than just goofy and weird. And I even got a little bit of that vibe as a kid. Notably, a lot of Dan Schneider, who we're going to be talking about in a moment, productions involved a lot of feet. A known fetish that a lot of weird people have. So, looking back at these things, there was a lot of concern. And it was always something that was memed. The fact that Dan Schneider, the guy who was like the creative head of a lot of these shows and ran Nickelodeon's production at the time pretty much, there were a lot of memes about how he was creepy. A good example of this, before there was really any solid ground to stand on to try to criticize him, notably there were a lot of jokes and memes about this. For example, Pink Guy, aka Filthy Frank, did his famous song, Nickelodeon Girls. And, well, I can't play the song. I will read just a brief excerpt from the lyrics of this masterpiece. Let's see. Here we go. Dan fucking Schneider, bring all my bitches back. I need all my bitches, I need all my bitches. The new shit you put out is whack. Very wise words from Filthy Frank, aka Pink Guy. Please read it like fine poetry. Yes, of course. Listen, there has been, like, ironic humor about how weird and creepy those sitcoms were from internet people and whatnot for a long time. There's always been this suspicion, right? However, recently, it got a little more than just being jokes and memes. You see, Jeanette McCurdy, an actress who played Sam in iCarly and a couple other shows, ended up writing a book. Like sort of a biography, a memoir, I don't know what the exact term is, and the book is called I'm Glad My Mom Died. And a lot of it is about the life she had with, like, an abusive mom, and a lot of it is about the life she had as a child actor. Of course, her mom made her get into child acting. And a lot of it breaks down the many different types of abuse, some of them sexual, that she faced while working as a child actor under Nickelodeon. And this book went massively viral when it came out. But people just kind of forgot about it after a couple years. It was like the talk of the town for a week, and now no one talks about it anymore. And then recently, we had a big documentary come out called Quiet on Set, which I guess interviewed a bunch of different Nickelodeon actors. I have not seen the documentary myself yet, but it apparently interviewed a bunch of different Nickelodeon actors, and they told their stories, and a lot of them involved, at the very least, Dan Schneider being negligent of sexual and other forms of abuse that took place on set for these shows and sitcoms. And now, post the release of this documentary, which has been a big problem for Nickelodeon, Dan Schneider has put out an official apology, and this is an E! News segment covering that apology and showing it, while also contrasting it with some of the points made in the documentary. So let's take a look.
I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation.
Former Nickelodeon producer Dan Schneider issues a video apology.
It's so crazy how no matter what Dan Schneider does with this entire look, he cannot make himself not look like a creep, you know? Like, there's so many people who you look at them and you're like, man, that guy looks like a creep. But he would look fine if he just cut his hair or grew it out longer or, like, shaved this or trimmed that, you know? Like, you could imagine a world where that person doesn't look creepy. With Dan Schneider, I don't know what he could do to not look creepy. He can't grow out facial hair to not look creepy. He can't shave his facial hair and not look creepy. He can't grow out his hair and not look creepy, or cut it and not look creepy. No matter how he styles himself, he looks exactly like what people say he is. You know what I mean?
Following the release of Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. Schneider, who parted ways with the network in 2018, is speaking out in response to the Investigation Discovery series, which recently aired. During a video conversation with iCarly actor Bobby K. Bowman, also known as Boogie, posted on Schneider's official YouTube account,
Boogie?
the ex-showrunner says,
Watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult. Me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret. And I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
I don't believe him simply based on the fact that he chose to grow this facial hair. I'm sorry. And he wouldn't look better without it. So I genuinely, I just don't like his face, and I choose not to believe any apology he gives or any explanation he gives. I'm going to fully admit here, I have a bias against him because of his face. I'm not a trustworthy source of information. No matter what he says, I will say, yeah, he did it. He's bad. I'm just kind of getting that out there right from the get-go, okay? I'm not an unbiased source in this topic. I'm just... I'm not going to go into this in good faith.
Pretty strong apology.
Schneider produced some of Nickelodeon's.
He looks like a much, much older DSP, Joe Star. You are completely spot on.
Most successful shows, including All That, The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, and iCarly. One element of the special focused on his asking crew members to massage Schneider on set, and Dan responds in the video with,
"It was wrong that I ever put anybody in that position. It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today."
Yeah, there's no, like, I was young and dumb and I made a mistake when it comes to, like, I asked underage actors who worked for me to massage me on set. That's not a mistake. That was a conscious action that no adult could ever make like the honest mistake of having asked, and it's like, all good, sorry, mistake, oof, you know? There's no, like, I'm sorry, I was 30, you know? I've learned a lot since then. I'm not buying it, you know? Like, this dude was in his 30s back then. He's talking like he was in his teens, and he just made a mistake, and he's grown up and moved on.
I'm embarrassed that I did it then. I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation. And even additionally, I apologize to the people who were walking around Video Village or wherever they happened, because there were lots of people there who witnessed it who also may have felt uncomfortable. So I owe them an apology as well. Yeah.
Schneider also adds that any questionable content or jokes in the shows should be cut from vaulted and rerun episodes.
Every one of those jokes was written for a kid audience because kids thought they were funny.
There were a lot of jokes and a lot of scenes where it is not really a joke. It's just like borderline glorifying sexual assault, particularly women or girls doing it to boys. Like, the joke is just, it's something that is literally a crime if a boy does it to a girl, but here we're laughing at it. We're literally playing a laugh track as it happens to a guy. Like, that is a lot of the jokes that he's referencing here. Yeah.
Funny. And only funny. Okay?
Kids love watching an underage Ariana Grande petting a potato. That's what kids love. True.
Now we have some adults looking back at them 20 years later through their lens, and they're looking at them and they're saying, oh, you know, I don't think that's appropriate for a kid show. And I have no problem with that, if that's how anyone feels.
Yeah, and he definitely has a foot fetish. Though I will say, people who've made that one post where it's like, I can't believe we didn't figure it out. Look what Nickelodeon's logo was for so long. And it's like the foot logo from Nickelodeon. Apparently, that is the logo for the animation division, which, you know, Dan Schneider didn't work with. And B, that logo existed before Dan Schneider had anything to do with Nickelodeon. So that particular point is just a meme, but I will choose to believe it because it's funnier. I do choose to believe it's true and that Dan Schneider made it be that, and that it's all his fault and that it's evidence. You know, I'm not going into this with good faith at all.
Let's cut those jokes out of the show.
He also says that multiple network executives approve the content and look of his shows, and that dozens of adults were on set and never raised concerns.
We had...
What? That's not an excuse. That's incrimination. Yeah, there were a lot of adults on set who saw no problem with this disgusting behavior. That sounds like we need to have a full investigation.
Executives in LA. We had executives in New York.
So two coasts.
Two coasts
okay.
of approval.
Coasts.
Yes. And by the way, approval.
Yeah, also the getting slimed thing for the Kids' Choice Awards or whatever it was. The getting slimed being Nickelodeon's whole thing. That could be a little weird if you look at it a certain way. But I choose not to look at it that way because I don't want to.
At every stage, really.
Okay.
And I'm talking about wardrobe. I'm talking about makeup, sound, sets, dialogue, jokes, everything. And we're also shooting it in front of all sorts of adults and caregivers and the set teacher and the families. Everybody's watching it.
The way he's talking, it's like he's trying to explain how there could be no abuse. And yet there are countless people who said, yeah, I had abusive experiences as a kid working as a child actor on Nickelodeon. So why is he explaining how many precautions they took as if it's impossible for anything to have happened when something happened and he's having to apologize for it? It's like he's moving the goalpost. He's trying to like pull a sleight of hand and redirect people's attention to like how much they tried to prevent this from happening. It's a non-apology. It's yeah, I'm sorry, but also we did nothing wrong.
And if anybody had said anything, hey, we don't like that, that's not appropriate, then it would have been cut out.
E! News has reached out to Nickelodeon for comment on Dan's...
It's actually the kids' faults for not having said anything, is what he's implying here.
...view and the Quiet on Set docuseries, and has not yet heard back. Investigation Discovery dropped the trailer for its 4-part docuseries back in February. Per a press release, the series alleged there was, quote, an insidious environment rife with allegations of abuse, sexism, racism, and inappropriate dynamics with its underage stars and crew, and specifically focuses on allegations of a toxic work environment involving Dan Schneider.
Look how small Dan Schneider's mouth is on his face. I just want you to think about that. Look at Dan Schneider's entire, face, and then, what percentage of his face would you say is his mouth? I'd say no more than 5%. Yeah, Summerstar, I agree. And I feel like one's mouth should roughly take up about 10% of their face. He has such a tiny mouth. It's like his mouth is as big. His mouth is as wide as his nose is wide.
Environment involving Dan Schneider. In the series, former cast and crew members shared their experiences working for the network and Schneider.
How in every photo, every child actor looks uncomfortable next to him.
He launched the careers of...
Does she look comfortable here? This is the face Starlight makes when Homelander puts his arm around her in public and she has to pretend for the camera. This is the exact same face they have that actress make in those scenes. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? You guys get the point I'm making? You're getting exactly the vibe I'm trying to get across here. The weird sexual stuff either. It was just a generally toxic and abusive work environment across the board, even outside of the weird, creepy, bullshit, you know?
So devastating.
How safe can any kids be in that environment?
And it's not even the fact that, some of the child actors were abused. It's also that in some of the cases, as these actors got older and some of them ended up engaging in abusive behavior themselves, not only were some of them abused when they were younger, but they would end up having their abusive behavior covered up. Notably, I think it was, was it Drake or Josh, who for years now has been in under fire for assault allegations, Drake Bell, but then it came out in all of this, Drake Bell was himself also the victim of assault in his time with Nickelodeon. Correct me if I'm wrong. That doesn't absolve him or redeem him or something, like some bad writing bullshit. But it's sort of a recognition of the fact that the problem is so bad that there were kids who were victims and it was covered up, and then those kids would grow up and victimize, and then that would would get covered up. It's just such a circle of cover-ups and abuse and more cover-ups. These are the kids who were abused, grew up, and retained the fame to then go on and make this documentary and be a part of it. How many kids never even made it onto a Nickelodeon show, but were still abused by the production team? And what have you. But they never got the fame side of it, so they never got a voice with which to talk about this. Could be countless. Because not every kid who got called in and was in the proximity of these people who were doing this stuff ended up on TV and ended up becoming a household name. It's a fucking wild sentence to say. They found this enormous trove of child pornography. What a sentence.
Ziploc bags, each one with a girl's name on it.
11.
I'm trying to think. What are the Ziploc bags for? Guys, I'm thinking, and I don't know if I can imagine a mind demented enough to, think of what the plastic bags are for. I don't... you can't fit a person in a Ziploc, so we're not talking about bodies, panties, but why would it have to be a Ziploc? Like, wouldn't he just have, like, jewelry, hair, maybe hair? Collecting women's hair? Oh. Maybe. Watch the damn documentary? I will, Wingo, I will. My time is limited. Believe it or not, guys, I am not a time lord. I can't just, like, make myself have infinite amount of time to do whatever. Just revealing, yeah, we've got evidence that, like, child actors on one of your shows was, like, sexually abused. Wait, you do? Gulp. Dude, you could literally hear the cartoon gulp in that guy's reaction.
21 interview with the New York Times.
You can practically hear the cartoon gulp.
Schneider said he never acted inappropriately with people he worked with, stating, "I couldn't and I wouldn't have the long-term friendships and continued loyalty from so many reputable people if I mistreated my actors of any age, especially minors."
That's like saying, how could this guy, I'm just using an example here, how could this guy be a rapist when 5 women have accused him of rape when he's got 25 female friends who have never done so? How could he have 25 female friends if he ever raped 5 women? You know, like, how could that ever be the case? You know, that's clear evidence that ever, like, obviously, there's going to be some of these kids that grew up and still maintain a relationship with Dan Schneider, but the fact that numerous people say that as kids under his watchful eye, they went through abuse on set, that is evidence of abuse. The existence of kids that did not call out Dan Schneider is not evidence against abuse having taken place.
Schneider also told the newspaper that if people considered him, quote, difficult, this was because of what he called his high standards. As he put it, "I'm very willing to defend creative things that I believe in."
Yeah, nothing response. Dude, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Dan Schneider's face. It just tells me all I need to know. He's got those... Just look at this fucking guy. Look at these 2 images of the guy. Like... Neither of these completely different looking people don't look like a child abuser, okay? He looks like DSP. He looks like old DSP. It's actually insane. He needs to shave. He really needs to shave and, like, change up that hair. He needs to go back to how he used to look. He needs to go back to looking like Dan Schneider and not looking like DSP.